Zelete, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. If you open the news today, you will see the exact same story repeated by the exact same media outlets. Look at the headlines coming out of Al Jazeera, quoting organizations like Human Rights Watch. They broadcast with massive banners. Russia's African Corps killed Mali civilians in airstrike. To the untrained eye scrolling through a phone in Europe or North America, this looks like a straightforward piece of reporting. It paints a picture of a rigged military operation in a lawless land, dropping bombs on helpless villagers without care or consequences. But if you actually live in West Africa, or if you have followed the bloody conflict in the Sahel over the last decade, that headline tells you a complete different story. It doesn't tell the story of what is actually happening on the ground in Mali. What it reveals is the sheer desperation of a global media apparatus watching its influence, its control, and its imperial narrative crumble in real time. For years, mainstream international media has operated as a judge and executioner for African sovereign states. They decide who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, what gets reported and what gets buried in the dark. But today, the people of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and the entire continent are asking the questions that these newsrooms refuse to answer. Where were these same cameras when armed TT groups were burning entire Mali villages to the ground? Where were the breaking news alert when the Malian armed forces were winning back their sovereign territory? And why is it that the moment Mali starts defeating these violent TT, the international media suddenly develops a hyper-vigilance consequence? Today, we are diving deep into the information war being waged against Mali, the hypocrisy of Western human rights reporting, and how social media has, exposed them, and the African awakening that no one can be silenced about. To understand why Al Jazeera and Western media outlets report on Mali the way they do today, they have to rewind the clock 10 years. For nearly a decade, foreign troops occupied the Sahel. You heard thousands of French soldiers under Operation Barkhane. You heard the United Nations multi-dimensional mission with billions of dollars in funding and thousands of foreign personnel patrolling the country. You heard European intelligence agencies, satellite surveillance, and advanced military bases set up across Malian territory. What was the result of a decade of foreign intervention? Did TT stop? No. Did the country become safer? No. Instead, TT groups affiliated with ICAI, IC expanded their footprint. They moved from the north desert down into the central regions of Mali. They cut off trade routes, executed local leaders, imposed brutal taxes on rural farmers, and turned millions of Malian citizens into internal refugees. Under the watchful eye of foreign armies, Mali was being slowly caved up and destroyed. When the Malian military leadership and all in all realized that foreign interventions were not designed to win the war, but to manage a permanent crisis, they made a historic and courageous choice. The Malian state demanded the complete withdrawal of French troops. They told the United Nations to pack their bags and leave. They accepted their national sovereignty and decided to take full responsibility for defending their own borders. To do this, Mali formed new strategic alliances, notably partnering with Russia and its African Corps to acquire heavy artillery, air defense systems, combat helicopters, and frontline tactical training. For the first time in over 10 years, the Malian armed forces, known as FAMA, went on the offensive. They didn't just sit in barracks waiting to be attacked. They marched into the strongholds of terror networks. They liberated strategic cities like Kidal, a city that foreign forces had kept out of the Malian government's control for years. FAMA prove to the world that an African army equipped with the right tools and real sovereign willpower can secure its own nation. So, how did the international media react when Mali started winning? Did Al Jazeera run daily breaking news updates celebrating the liberation of the Malian towns? Did Western news outlets run front-page stories highlighting the bravery of Malian soldiers who gave their lives to protect innocent civilians from the TT? Absolutely not. When the Malian army succeeds, there is absolute radio silence from global media networks. The victories are either completely ignored. Or framed with heavy skepticism. You will hear them say things like Mali forces claim to have captured the village, framing official state communications as unverified rumors while treating the statements of anti-state armed groups as absolute facts. However, the moment an airstrike occurs in a combat zone, the machinery of Western propaganda fires up at maximum speed. Look at how these stories are constructed. Cite reports from remote non-governmental organizations like Human Rights Watch. But let's ask the critical question that nobody in those newsrooms wants to answer. Where is the direct physical proof? Where are their cameras in the frontline villages of northern Mali? Are these foreign investigators standing on the ground during active firefights? No. Organizations like Human Rights Watch conduct what they call desk investigations. They sit in offices thousands of miles away in Dhaka, Paris, or Washington, making phone calls to selective local contacts. In many cases, these contacts are living under the direct control or coercion of TT factions in G. When a T group takes heavy losses from a Malian airstrike, what do? They don't report that fighters were eliminated. They immediately run to local contacts and tell the international media that the strike hit innocent civilians. This has been the narrative all these years. And this is how they have manipulated the African for all these years. And the African believes so much in every narrative. Thanks to social media, today we are able to bring out the truth about what is actually happening in our own continent. They always run these things. When the African is winning, their CCTV camera suddenly goes off. But the moment the African does something, it is everywhere. They reframe it in a way that is not even the case. So the time for you, the African, to start waking up is now. They have never reported anything good about what the leaders in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are doing. How can somebody sit in the comfort zone in an air-conditioned office and be able to tell what is actually happening on the ground? Look at the victory that we saw. Which of them talked about how brave the Malian soldiers saved their people? Looking at what is happening in AES, especially the unified force that they have joined their forces together, is helping AES a lot. Have you ever heard them report about what this unified force has ever done? Have they ever told us what they came and did for over 10 years and there was no show, to the point that the military have to kick them out? They will never say that. They always want to project themselves to be the saviors of Africa. Yet, the same France that is projecting itself that without Africa, even Macron said it in Kenya, when he came for that Kenya African summit, that is because France is not there. But this man speak and forget that France was there for over 10 years and the TT activities never stopped. But today that we have leaders, so the time for us to understand how these people have programmed us, and that was why, to the point that we rose up against our leaders like Muammar Gaddafi. This is how they always type their messages. The messages must suit who is funding them, who owns this broadcast or news outlets, who owns the organization called the Human Rights and all the Western organizations. If you get to know the answer, you understand why whenever anything has to do with you, the African, the report is always different. They never report anything good about you, the African. So you should understand that the time for us to start believing in our own narrative and listening to our own selves is now. The truth is, Mali will never unalive any civilian. And how can something be happening in the forest? How did these locals manage to enter the forest? Because these people are not in the city, they are in the forest. So how did they manage to get in contact with these people when the strike happened to the point that villagers were unalive? That is the question you should ask yourself. If the TT launched a coordinated attack in the city, in Bamako, Kidda, and several places, and civilians were not hurt, how come now that it is happening in the forest, civilians are unalive? Just think about that, and you understand what they are after. But the African is wide awoken. We must share, like, comment, so that together we educate our brothers and sisters. The time has come for us to reclaim our narrative. We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall. And united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world in Africa, West Africa, and in Mali.